Coming off only their second loss, the Eagles, minus 4 starters, limp home to face the desperate 6-9 Saints. Sal Paolantonio on what the loss in Big D tells us about where the Eagles are right now. Sean Green has your Week 17 props, picks, and Super Bowl odds. And Gary Myers on great coach-quarterback combos and those we lost in 2022. It's all right now on This Week in Pro Football.
It's time for This Week in Pro Football. A deep dive into the key issues and marquee matchups in the National Football League. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to sit back or lean in with host Pat Callahan as we preview the week's Eagles matchup, big games, breaking stories, and all news NFL. It's This Week in Pro Football, right now on JAKIB Media Sports.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Week 17 of This Week in Pro Football here on JAKIB Sports. Pat Callahan joining you as we rumble to the end of the seemingly now very long regular season in the National Football League. Of course, if you look at the Christmas Day ratings, TV ratings, I guess the season's not long enough. The way the NFL basically tripled the ratings of the NBA. The NBA had 5 games. The NFL had 3. The NFL is just a monster and will be for the foreseeable future. But Week 17 coming up right now, a lot of big games, a lot of jockeying for a playoff position. And it'll be great. We'll be joined by the great Sal Paolantonio. Will be coming on in a few minutes. I'm going to wring as many minutes from Sal as I can as we talk about both the loss to Dallas and Sunday's game against the New Orleans Saints and who's going to be playing in Sunday's game, what Sal thinks of that, and then who Sal sees it as the real Super Bowl contenders at this point in each conference and how each conference is, in fact, shaping up. Heck of a race going on for that 1 seed in the AFC. NFC, it's still the Eagles to lose. All they got to do is win one of their last 2. Xander, why don't we bring Vince Lombardi in here and talk about what the hell is going on out there as we look at Week 17 in the National Football League. 3rd and 30 leads to 40-34. Again, courtesy of Sal Pal. He notified me or alerted me that this has happened 280 times since the year 2000, that a team has faced a 3rd and 30. 4 times they converted, 1.4%. So, not too good there for Philadelphia, giving that up on a 3rd down and 30 yards to go. Obviously, it led directly to the Eagles losing the game. So very unfortunate there for the Birds. Very uncharacteristic, giving up a 40 spot in Big D for Philadelphia led to the loss. And something we'll talk with Sal about in some detail here as the Eagles host the Saints in Week 17. Your Week 17 quarterback, well, as we go to press here, Jalen Hurts was practicing, limited, but practicing. I would suspect he's putting as much heat as he can on the brain trust in Philadelphia to start that game Sunday. I think he's that kind of guy. He wants to play. He wants to be on the field. I would suspect the Eagles are still leaning towards Gardner Minshew. Philadelphia should win this game and should be able to do it without Hurts, but we'll see what happens over the next 72 hours. Give me that 5 seed. Give me that 5 seed is right, because in both conferences, the 4 seed is going to be the AFC, the South Division winner. In the NFC, it looks like it's going to be Tampa Bay, even though if Carolina wins their last 2, they are in. In the AFC, it's going to be either Jacksonville or Tennessee. Tennessee is that you talk about backing into the playoffs. They have redefined that notion. 5 straight losses. They're going to get hammered against Dallas. Starting a quarterback who just joined the team 8 days ago from the Lions practice squad. So what's going on in Tennessee? I don't know. But either case, you want to be that 5 seed. The team most affected by that is the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are right now the 6th seed in the AFC. But if the Chargers win out, they could flip positions with Baltimore, which is the 5 seed. I'd much rather go to Tennessee or Jacksonville than go to Cincinnati, assuming that the Bengals end up the 3 seed. The injury bug has, in fact, landed in Philadelphia. The Eagles had ducked it most of the season, but right now they're looking at C.J. Gardner-Johnson out, Lane Johnson with an abdominal injury, very tough. He's going to a shoe surgery for now to try and play in the playoffs. He's a warrior, no question about that. Jalen Hurts trying to get back from that sprain in his shoulder, and now Avonte Maddox out for Philadelphia too. So The Eagles are catching up to the rest of the NFL with the injury list. And then Tua, third concussion this year. What a shame. Nathaniel Hackett out at Denver after an absolutely disastrous performance on Christmas Day against the Rams. And the usual suspects we're talking about in coaching right now. I still think there's a few to go here. We've already had 3 fired in season. I think there's still a couple more to go before the there always is. There's always at least 5, if not 6, 7 coaches fired. I think that there's a couple of suspects. Josh McDaniel better be careful. What's going on in Las Vegas is a disaster after some excruciating losses by the Raiders this year, including the last one, Christmas Eve night. They literally just handed that game to Pittsburgh. What an offensive performance, especially by Derek Carr. Carr was terrible this year. He was terrible. Now, what the Raiders are doing, I don't know, but they're clearly going on without Derek Carr. So the Raiders, I think Josh McDaniel, I don't know. He might be heading out of town in Vegas. Jeff Saturday, the Colts just completely moribund now, have scored a whopping 6 points in the last 6 quarters. They're a disaster. Saturday, I don't think will stay on as coach there. And Lovie Smith, you never know, 2-12-1 Houston. The other one is Cliff Kingsbury, who I think is gone as coach of the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals will once again have to start over after a dismal season in Arizona, where the seasons just seem to be dismal. That's it. So, Xander, how about we bring this gentleman on, the longtime correspondent for ESPN, the host of the NFL Matchup Show, and an analyst on numerous NFL broadcasts himself. That would be the great Sal Paolantonio. Sal, how you doing?
Merry Christmas to you, Pat, and everybody at JAKIB Media. Thanks for having me back. I missed last week, Pat. I missed
having you last week, Sal, but it's nice to have you back here. So you have to talk twice as fast now since you weren't here last week. So, but how about we start chronologically, Sal, if we might. Give me some take on the Dallas game itself. What warning signs did you see there that may, in fact, manifest in that loss to the Cowboys?
Well, I think they need to correct some things for sure. When they play good quarterbacks and good wide receivers, Jonathan Gannon's defense is just not good enough. You can't have CeeDee Lamb targeted 11 times and have 10 catches. You can't give up a 52-yard bomb on 3rd and 30. You're playing a cover 2 at that time when you should have had somebody on T.Y. Hilton. You should have had T.Y. Hilton doubled. The Cowboys did not have very many receivers on the route.
On the pattern, right.
Yeah, they didn't have many on the pattern. It was 7 on 3, and that means you got to put 2 guys on 1, and you still have 1 left over to play zone. Yeah, it was definitely something they should have done. They should have bracketed T.Y. Hilton, and they didn't do that. For whatever reason, maybe the call was there and it wasn't executed. But my guess is that's the defense that Gannon called. And as Darius Slay said afterwards, I didn't have what I needed on the back end. So he was clearly looking for safety help there, but he shouldn't be looking for safety help. He's Darius Slay on T.Y. Hilton, who was on the couch eating Cheetos 2 weeks ago.
Right, you are. But Slay, you sent me that and quoted him as saying that play got me real hot. I'm sure he could have been referring to the fact that you just pointed out he let Hilton get behind it, but I think it's more likely he was pointing out the fact the Eagles might have been in the wrong defense.
Yep, I think so. And then, coming out of the gate, Pat, Dallas Goedert, again, 3 catches on 3 targets. He should have been targeted at least 8 times in that game, 5 to 8 times in that game.
Right.
And that's something that Shane Steichen and Gardner Minshew have got to figure out. Shane Steichen's got to get some specific plays that go to Goddard. Goddard's open all the time. Goddard catches everything. His catch ratio is the highest of any tight end in the National Football League. So get the ball to Dallas Goedert. And the other thing is, in his first start on the road in Dallas, he's throwing 40 passes, Gardner Minshew.
I know.
Design runs for Miles Sanders. That's the key in this game against the Saints.
Yeah, I expect, Sal, we'll get to the Saints game in a second, but I expect a much more sedate game plan. And I want to talk to you a little more expansively, too, about who you expect to see. I know you've said to me earlier in the week that given the way Nick Sirianni was acting that Minshew would be the starter. Are you rethinking that at all, given the fact that Jalen Hurts appeared at practice today?
Well, he appeared on a limited basis in practice on Thursday. And that means that they're slowly working him back onto the football field. Unless you're a full participant on Friday, you really don't have much chance of playing in the game.
Okay.
To me, you don't, when Nick Sirianni said on Monday that he spent all Christmas Day watching the game and texting with Gardner Minshew on mistakes that were made by Gardner Minshew, that to me was a telltale sign that he's getting Minshew ready to play against the Saints. That's the sign that I looked at. Okay.
All right. Well, let's take a more detailed look when we get back, Sal, at this Saints game. And I want your take also on the fact that Lane Johnson now is not there, how the Eagles will manipulate their offensive line to account for that, and what the game plan really would be, should be. And then we'll take a look at just a sneak peek at each conference and who you think are the really strong contenders for the Super Bowl. We're going to do all that with Sal Paolantonio when we get back here on This Week in Pro Football.
First Bank is a true community bank with offices located throughout eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Being a First Bank customer comes with access to personal bankers, ones who know you and your business almost as well as you do. Joe Calabro is a regional president of First Bank and has been a leader and a lender in the southeastern Pennsylvania market for over 30 years. Call their Westchester office, 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
UGI Energy Services knows how dedicated you are to your teams, and that's how they feel about their customers. UGI Energy Services, a natural gas and electric provider servicing Philadelphia and the surrounding areas for decades. They're your local partner for energy planning and budgeting with sound purchasing advice and direct pricing. UGI Energy Services values customers and believes in building honest relationships. Let them help you save money on your energy bill and make enjoying the game that much sweeter. Get started with a free quote today at UGIES.com.
Cantor Novak Beaver and Pike is a full-service CPA firm with offices in PA and New Jersey, offering first-rate accounting, audit, and tax services. They focus on helping clients achieve their business and financial goals, from startup operation to long-term financial planning. For more information, call Terry Cantor or Dan Pike at 215-550-2954 or on the web at cnbpcpas.com.
Are you looking for a family-friendly fitness center in the heart of Bucks County? Spring Mill Athletic Club has programs and activities to offer the whole family for every age and season. Group classes, personal training, dance academy, summer camp, and more can be found at this non-intimidating environment. Come tour Spring Mill Athletic Club today and get a free 1-week trial membership. Visit us at springmillathletic.com for more information.
I want to be a game changer in construction. I want to be able to provide diversity in the workforce, and it starts at the top. I started Rodriguez Construction Group in 2013 with 2 employees, and we're 85 strong today. M&T has been a great partner since day one, providing us the access, the opportunity, the funding to be able to continue our growth. We can change the community in a positive way, one person at a time, one job at a time, and one family at a time. I think M&T Bank is very committed to the community, just like us.
Welcome back This Week in Pro Football, week number 17, the National Football League. Pat Callahan here with the great Sal Paolantonio. You can follow me at TWIPF Pat on Twitter. Follow the network at JAKIB Sports. And Sal Pal, let's resume here, if we might. Talk about the Eagles now hosting the 6-9 Saints. The Eagles come into this game with a 160 net point differential advantage over New Orleans. New Orleans has a less than 1% chance of making the playoffs. but they still play hard. They play hard. They just won in terrible conditions in Cleveland last week. They come to Philadelphia now, and the deck really stacked against them. Philadelphia, though, no Lane Johnson. How do you see the Eagles initially working around that injury?
Well, let's look at a big picture and little picture, Pat. Big picture is the Philadelphia Eagles were given a 3-game-in-a-row road trip, 3 straight on the road in the month of December by the NFL schedule makers.
Yeah.
And they won 2 out of 3. And when you looked at that game in Dallas at the beginning of the year, you thought to yourself, that's going to be a tough game to win no matter what, right? Because the Eagles have had trouble winning in Dallas. Dallas, you knew, was going to be in the playoff hunt. That's always tough to win on the road in the NFL, and especially the 3rd road game in a row to win that 3rd road game. So I think the Eagles have accomplished a lot in the month of December by winning 2 out of 3 on the road and putting themselves in a position in the last 2 weeks to get home field throughout in the number 1 seed. I think they're going to beat the Saints.
Right.
I think they're going to cover.
Right.
They're 6.5 or 7, depending on where you look. Point favorites. I think they're going to cover the spread. The Saints are a bad road team. They're 1-6 on the road. They're 0-4 against teams with a winning record. They have injuries at key positions. Kamara's injured. He didn't practice at all on Thursday. He's got a personal issue he's also dealing with that's unidentified. Chris Olave, their young rookie wide receiver and their best receiver, has over 100 targets. He's also injured. He was limited in practice, and he is a question mark going into Sunday's game, although I'd be shocked if he didn't play. So their best offensive playmakers are either injured or have been unavailable for practice for the entire week. Right. Andy Dalton is a statue. You can get after him. I think that the Eagles will dominate this football game against New Orleans. I really do.
All right. So, I think they should. They certainly should, coming off a loss like that. I agree with you. But just a point about Johnson, I think the Eagles, do they shuffle the line or do they just replace him, I guess is what I'm trying to nail down. A lot of teams, when you lose a guy of his stature, you'll move maybe the right tackle to left tackle or something like that. What do you see Philadelphia doing?
Well, Nick Sirianni was asked about that and was very coy about it. He said, I don't want to give the answer to you because that's giving the answer to the Saints. But you look at Jack Driscoll. I like Jack Driscoll. He's not a small college player. He came from Auburn. Let me give you the numbers. He's had 588 pass block attempts in his young career and allowed only 5 sacks and 12 hurries. So he has really done well at the right tackle position or when he's been on the field anywhere. He's a good swing player. I would not interrupt Jordan Mailata at left tackle. He's had near a Pro Bowl season at left tackle. And I would put Driscoll at right tackle and stick with the young man. I think he's done pretty well, Pat. Great. I really do.
Okay. Sal, just a word about the perception of the Eagles at this point coming off that loss to Dallas. I think there's been an overreaction amongst many in the national media, even ESPN's own power rankings. Now the Eagles have fallen behind a number of teams, including San Francisco. Do you think maybe there's been too much of a swing in the pendulum away from Philadelphia given the loss to the Cowboys?
But they'll swing back, Pat. They'll get the number 1 seed and they'll get it on Sunday, and then they'll get to rest their injured players. By the way, what Lane Johnson has is a, quote, torn abductor, which is a pretty tough injury.
That doesn't sound.
No, it's the muscle that connects the kneecap to the hip.
Yeah.
So that's tough to play it with, and the only way to get it better is to rest it. He has to stay off of it and ice it. But I'm not a doctor, but I'm just saying for a man that size who's got to move like he does.
Yeah.
That's a tough injury to come back from. So I'm color me a little skeptical on him being able to come back and come back at the high rate of play that he had. Nevertheless, he's determined to do that. He realizes this team, if they get number 1 seed, which they are, they're going to go on a Super Bowl run. They'll beat the first team that they play, no question about it.
Right.
Do you really think that Brock Purdy can come into Philadelphia on a Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm thinking too, right? At some point, Brock Purdy has to show up, is what I'm thinking, Sal. You know what I mean?
Well, nothing against Brock Purdy. I'm just saying, nobody is equipped to handle that.
Yeah.
The wind and the cold and that crowd. It's a menacing, hostile
It
place
is.
to play. And you got Hassan
is.
Reddick and Brandon Graham and
Right.
Fletcher Cox and company
Right.
breathing down your neck a whole game.
Right.
That's hard to do.
Yep.
It's a hard task for a young quarterback. It really is.
All right.
So, I mean, and we can agree, Pat. I mean, we can agree that you would pencil this in as a failure if this team does not make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm hearing this one and done talk that I'm hearing, Sal, I think is a little bit too much. I mean, certainly, as you point out, they're going to get that 1 seed and they're going to sit there for a week and get a much needed week off. And then who's coming to town, Sal, would be, it could be most likely the Cowboys are going to come to town unless, I don't know. I think there's a chance Tampa does not even win that division. But I think that 4 seeds coming or 4 or 5 seeds coming, and I think the Eagles get dispatch them. I don't see Dallas.
Pat, when I first came on this show in September, and we were starting to really chronicle the turnover margin.
Right.
And I said to you, the only way the Eagles lose is if Jalen Hurts turns the ball over. And he was magnificent all year long.
Right.
The only time this team lost, 4 turnovers at home on Monday night against the Washington Commanders.
Right.
If they turn the ball over twice against Dallas, they win on the road with Gardner Minshew. So I don't know what people are saying that it's one and done with Philadelphia. I mean, give me a break.
Right. Talking with Sal Paolantonio, the host of the NFL Matchup Show, presented by the good folks at First Bank. Sal, let's take a broader look now at the Super Bowl contenders. We'll start with the NFC. And as I see it, Sal, you got Philadelphia. Obviously, we just got done chronicling how they are clearly, in my opinion, still the number 1 seed. But who else do you see as a really serious Super Bowl contender? Minnesota's probably going to end up with the 2 seed. San Francisco could edge them out. Do you see Minnesota as a serious contender? Do you see Dallas as a serious contender?
Pat Callahan, this show is called This Week in Pro Football, but I'm going to violate I'm going to violate the mandate and go with your question. And I'm going to shock and amaze you, Joe Frazier. I'm going to say nobody wants to play the Packers right now.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
They're not giving up points.
Yeah. Yep.
If you look at it, right now their defense is playing well. Aaron Rodgers has got that cocky confidence right now. He's got one of the best young wide receivers in the game who's tough to cover, and Christian Watson.
You're right. Can you imagine, Sal?
Pat, I'm telling you right now.
I know.
If the Vikings have got to knock him out this week, because if you don't, he's going to be like
right. What you
he's
just
going to be like Godzilla. I mean, he is going to just roam through the NFC.
Yeah. And guess where he's going to go first? If the Vikings don't knock him out, guess where he's appearing first in the playoffs? Most likely he'll be at the I don't know what it's called now. It used to be the Metrodome. He'll be in Minnesota as to 7 seed Green Bay, probably playing the 2 seed the Vikings, and that's the last person Minnesota wants to see.
Last
down is that number 12. I agree with you there.
Sal, I think they are the biggest threat to anybody right now. Yeah. Niners, because of Purdy. I don't know. Yeah. Purdy can go on the road in a hostile place and play. We haven't seen that really yet against a good team.
Yeah, I think it'll be tough for the Giants to go there if the chalk holds. The Giants hold serve Sunday. They end up the 6th seed. Tough for the Giants to go out there and beat them. But I agree. I think San Francisco would have a tough time here in Philadelphia.
Don't want to play Aaron Rodgers, Pat.
Yeah. Okay.
Not right now. Mm-mm.
Now, the real, besides Philadelphia, in my opinion, Sal, the real power lies in the AFC. There are 3 teams in the AFC, Sal, that I think maybe you could throw a blanket over. And that is Buffalo. He is a freak of nature. Josh Allen. You've got the Chiefs, who I think have benefited, Sal, from a very easy schedule, sitting out at 12-3. They finished with Denver and the Raiders, which they're going 14-3. And then Cincinnati. Joe Burrow has turned up the dial recently in the last month. They're a formidable team right now. Just give me your thoughts on how you think those 1-3 seeds end up in the AFC.
Well, let me start with the team that I covered last week. Cincinnati Bengals got shut out in the second half by the Patriots. And I was in that locker room, and I talked to players and coaches after the game, Trey Hendrickson, Joe Burrow, and some of the coaches, and they were really disappointed about their performance. And the bottom line is you got to give Joe Burrow some help. They don't run the ball very well. And when they do run it, they give it up too quickly because, hey, we got Joe Burrow. We got Jamar Chase. We got T. Higgins. We got Ty Boyd. We got, So what are we doing running the football? I think that Zach Taylor, they get way too pass happy.
Yeah.
And they just lost one of their best offensive linemen to an injury in the first quarter, Lyle Collins.
Collins, right.
Yep. And right after that, they gave up 2 sacks on the other side because they were compensated for Collins' loss, and they didn't really score much after he went out. So the Bengals, yes, 7 in a row. Burrow's great, but they need to give him some help. Same thing with Josh Allen. Josh Allen has 18 turnovers, Pat, Josh Allen has 18 turnovers. Yeah. And the reason why is because they put too much on him. And that's one of the things that we do on this week's matchup show. Yeah. We talk about the volume and production that the Buffalo Bills need to get. Ken Dorsey, their offensive coordinator, a former quarterback, and he's in love with his gunslinger, Josh Allen. He needs to get some balance on offense because I'll tell you what, Kansas City has balance and explosiveness. They have it all offensively. And Steve Spagnuolo knows how to shut down Josh Allen.
All right. It's funny you bring that up and you accentuate the 18 turnovers. 14 picks got Derek Carr banished from the city of Las Vegas. So it's all relative.
And how many touchdown passes does Derek Carr have? He's got way over 20. I don't, you came on and you said Derek Carr's had a bad year. I don't know, Pat. I think, Devontae Adams was hurt a little bit. I think he's the fall guy there.
You may be right, but I'm telling you, he's just not a leader. You're not going to go deep in the playoffs with Derek Carr. I mean, I don't know how many years he has to play to prove it.
I know Derek Carr very well. I've interviewed him several times. He is a good leader. He's a God-fearing young man. He's tough, stands in the pocket. He makes mistakes. And we've seen it in the past where Josh McDaniels does not suffer fools gladly for very long, right? Saw it in Denver. When he had Tom Brady, he was great. When he doesn't have Tom Brady, he's not great.
That's fair to say. That is fair. But
I think Derek Carr's getting a bad deal there. Bad deal. I think I really do, Pat.
All right. And then we didn't spend much, but we have a minute left here, Sal. We talk about the Chiefs. Kansas City, the NFL props up teams to play them, and then the Chiefs knock them down. I don't think they're playing lights out football, but you have to give it to Patty Mahomes. He's playing with an extremely nondescript roster of wide receivers, and yet they're still very formidable offensively.
Well, I'm sure you've watched us on the matchup show. What we have shown is Andy Reid. I mean, come on. Yeah. There's a reason why Andy Reid's been so good for so long with so many different players. He went to 3 tight end sets. He brought in Jerick McKinnon. Right. He brought in the wide receiver from the Giants. The guy scores a touchdown pass. Tony, right. So, he can take players and he can just make them better within his system. He gets creative around the goal lines. Nobody's better inside the 5 than the Kansas City Chiefs. They just score a lot of touchdowns, Pat.
Yeah, they do.
They do. You have a guy who's an improvisational player, and you have a coach who doesn't mind being creative and different.
It's a great combination. It is a devastating combination.
And Spagnuolo, he doesn't always have all the horses, but he's pretty smart at figuring out game-to-game matchups. The Bills, in my view, only win the AFC title if they have the number 1 seed. They're not going to go on the road.
Hosting, right. If they host Kansas City, I think that would give them.
They have a good shot. Yes.
Right. All right, Sal, we blew through that time like you and I always do, and I certainly appreciate you coming on and hanging out for an extended period of time. I hope you're going to be in Philadelphia this weekend. We'll see you around the link.
Oh yeah, Saints at Eagles. I wouldn't be anywhere else. And don't forget NFL matchup show. Right. And you can, Pat, you never promote my Instagram. You're always promoting your Twitter. I get it. It's your show.
I didn't even know you were on Instagram.
Once in a while, it's Sal Pal ESPN on Instagram. Okay.
There you go. Sal Pal. I will get that right into the copy for next week.
I'm very benign on social media, Pat. You know that. But you try me out on Instagram.
I will do that. We'll do that, Sal. Appreciate it very much.
I got the green flare. I'm ready for this weekend.
All right, Sal Paolantonio, thank you very much, pal. We'll talk to you real soon. Happy New Year.
You too.
All right. Great Sal Paolantonio joining us there. He's lukewarm, certainly on. It's interesting take him on San Francisco there, and of course he sounds the alarm about the Green Bay Packers, and Aaron Rodgers might have the last laugh after all. All right, we'll get Gary Myers' take on that too, briefly, to where the playoff everything stands playoff wise, and then we want to talk with Gary about great quarterback coach combinations such as Andy Reid and Patty Mahomes. And over the years in the National Football League. We're going to do all that next on This Week in Pro Football.
I grew up in a home, and I wanted my kids to have that. The process of buying a home seemed so daunting, but Christine and M&T believed in me. Everyone took an interest and helped me through the process. You don't get this kind of service everywhere. I closed on the house and I didn't tell the kids. They were like, oh, you got the key? You closed on the home? They were so happy. M&T Bank made this dream come true for me and my girls.
UGI Energy Services knows how dedicated you are to your teams, and that's how they feel about their customers. UGI Energy Services, a natural gas and electric provider servicing Philadelphia and the surrounding areas for decades. They're your local partner for energy planning and budgeting with sound purchasing advice and direct pricing. UGI Energy Services values customers and believes in building honest relationships. Let them help you save money on your energy bill and make enjoying the game that much sweeter. Get started with a free quote today at ugies.com.
At Whistler Pearlstein LLP, we assemble the most effective team to handle all of your legal needs. There are players and pretenders, but our hustle and heart set us apart. In practice now for over 75 years, we're proud to be one of the most prominent full-service law firms in the Philadelphia region. We offer 17 different areas of practice, including business, corporate, and tax education law, real estate, zoning, and land development, municipal law, and litigation. Our top-rated attorneys and staff are laser-focused on client success. We strive to provide outstanding legal counsel with the highest level of care and consideration. Let us show you the Whistler way. Learn more at WhistlerPearlstein.com or email Michael J. O'Donohue at mod@WhisPearl.com. WhistlerPearlstein.com or mod@WhisPearl.com.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
It was late at night. I was browsing KennedyAuto.com when there was a knock at my door.
Hey, baby, what you doing?
Buying a car from John Kennedy Ford.
Online?
I let her in on the secret. KennedyAuto.com makes car buying easy. That got her attention.
Can I go for a ride?
Let me get my coat. KennedyAuto.com. Enjoy your ride.
Welcome back here This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan joining you on JAKIB Sports. I didn't even notice Sal Paolantonio had an Instagram account. How about that? You learn things about people that you've known for 25 years all the time. So I'll have to make sure we pub that as much as possible. Waiting to hook up with Gary Myers. Gary's having some technical difficulties, I guess, up there in New York. So we're waiting to try and hook up with Gary. In the meantime, what I'll do is I'll just flip something. I wanted to look around the league. And Xander, while we're waiting on Gary, maybe if you could bring up the standings, I wanted to touch base on that and look at these playoff possibilities here in the NFC and the AFC. You see there the NFC standings, and the Eagles have a 98% chance of getting that 1 seed. The Vikings a 72% chance of holding on to the 2 seed. Now, Minnesota, to finish up the season, the Vikings have Green Bay. They're at Green Bay and at Chicago. They're going to beat the Bears. But Minnesota is expected to hold on to that seed. And then San Francisco would fall to the 3 seed. And the way I think it's going to shake out is you're going to have Tampa Bay they host Carolina. They'll probably beat Carolina this Sunday. I think they're gonna have a tough time with them. The Panthers are playing real downhill football when it comes to running right now, and I think Tampa Bay's a tired, older team. Carolina has a puncher's chance to win that game. But either way, Dallas will go to the NFC South champion. I think Dallas would win that game, which would bring the 4 seed possibly, if everybody else holds serve. Dallas would then come to Philadelphia. But as Sal pointed out, if Green Bay sneaks into that 7 seed over Washington, then Washington has games with Cleveland and Dallas. Then Green Bay would really be a tough out for Minnesota and a team that the Vikings do not want to see. In the AFC, it's a little more convoluted because these 3 teams in the AFC are really jockeying for position. To tell you, this is according to playoffstatus.com. Would you believe there's a website that's dedicated solely to this? The Bills have a 45% chance of holding serve and picking up that 1 seed, whereas the Chiefs are right behind them at 45%. I mentioned how easy the Chiefs' schedule is. Kansas City games left, Denver, and at Vegas. They're going to win both of those games. Buffalo has a Monday nighter at Cincinnati, and then they host New England. The Bengals then would be the 3rd seed, assuming that nothing breaks their way. They don't end up with the 1 seed. They could, but the Chiefs are not going to lose out. And then the 4 seed is whoever wins that moribund AFC South. It looks like it could be Jacksonville this time. It's a funny thing that the games that Jacksonville is playing this week and Tennessee playing Dallas don't mean a thing. They're preseason games, literally preseason games. The winner of next week's game between Jacksonville and Tennessee is the AFC South champion. So it looks again just identical to the NFC. The 5 seed in the AFC will be either the Ravens or the Chargers. I think the Chargers, according to this website, the Chargers have a 56% chance of grabbing that 5 seed, and as such, they would go to either Jacksonville or Tennessee, whereas the Ravens in the 6th seed would then have to go to Cincinnati. Interesting all around there, how the playoffs might shake out. Still got 2 weeks to go. A lot of different things obviously could still happen in that regard. I was going to talk with Gary, and it looks like we're going to lose Gary for this week. Maybe we could get him on a little bit later in the show, Xander, but I was going to talk with Gary about the episode in Las Vegas. Sal mentioned it briefly, and he was a staunch defender of Derek Carr. I'm not. I mean, all you needed to see, in my opinion, was at the end of that game Saturday when the Raiders, who have lost some excruciating games so far this year. Think about the Thursday night loss to the Rams. They lost that at the very end of the game. And offensively, they just did nothing against the Steelers on Christmas Eve night. Nothing. Devontae Adams, 2 catches for 15 yards. I mean, come on. What are you doing? Sure enough, they kept giving the ball back to the Steelers. The Steelers finally got a touchdown drive off, took the lead. Still 34 seconds to go. You just need a field goal. But he couldn't do it. Carr runs up in the pocket and lobs a pass to a wide open Hunter Renfrow. It's 10 yards over his head. Intercepted. See you down the road. Raiders are virtually eliminated. They, like the Saints, have about a 1% chance. If the rest of the league disbanded, the Raiders maybe could make the playoffs. But things are a shambles in Las Vegas right now. A very disappointing season. Big trade for Adams. And it doesn't pan out. And now Derek Carr has basically been banned from the facility over the last 2 weeks, and he's clearly going to be an ex-Raider. There'll be a lot of interest in Derek Carr in the around the league, certainly. A lot of free agent quarterbacks, I think, are going to show up, and they'll be competing against each other this offseason. But Carr will be a primo target for teams like the Jets, the Colts. Many teams will be looking for a quarterback. I'll tell you who might be looking for one too is Tampa Bay, because I don't know how long Tom Brady. If Tom Brady plays another year, it might be for somebody else. Could be Vegas. Some talk around the league. Brady would like to reunite with Josh McDaniel. Josh would not banish Tom Brady from the facility. I'm fairly certain of that. But anyway, we're going to talk with Gary about great quarterback coach combinations. Obviously, my rankings were I had Belichick and Brady was number one. It's probably the greatest coach quarterback combination the league has seen. Certainly the most successful. it's funny. Without Tom Brady, Bill Belichick has a losing record as an NFL head coach. That's a pretty big without. He had Brady, and he made maximum use of his talents, won 6 Super Bowls. So I guess you can't complain about the what happened with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in New England. So that was my number one. Number two, Chuck Noll, Terry Bradshaw won 4 Super Bowls in the 70s with what I consider to be the greatest NFL team of all time. That's late 70s Steelers team was really a fantastic team. But Terry Bradshaw, much maligned out of college, caricatured, and he's made a lot of money off that caricature since he retired. But he and Chuck Noll, formidable in winning 4 straight, or not 4 straight, but 4 Super Bowls. I think it was in 5 or 6 years. You can't argue Walsh and Montana. Obviously, Bill Walsh, the architect of so much of the modern NFL passing game, and Joe Montana, 3rd-round pick of the 49ers out of Notre Dame. Montana was simply an outstanding quarterback. I see Gary Myers has magically appeared here. Can we get him in here, Xander, before he disappears on us? I don't know. It still doesn't look like a great connection. Gary, can you join us here on This Week in Pro Football?
Yeah, Pat, I was having trouble with my computer that I've been using all season with you, so
I know.
I switched to my iPhone.
All right.
And hopefully that's okay.
All right. Well, if you could, I hope you're not going to take a whole tour of the house. All right, you are sitting
No,
down.
I'm just getting back where I think I have my best Wi-Fi service here.
All right, well, listen, what I want you to do for me then is we don't have as much time as I would have liked with you, but if you would for me, I just introduced the notion, and I was playing off of Josh McDaniel, basically telling Derek Carr to get out. And we're talking about great coach quarterback combinations. I was running through some of mine: Belichick, Brady, Noel, Bradshaw, as you pointed out, Bill Walsh, Joe Montana. Why don't you give me your, say, top 3 that you think over the NFL are the best?
Well, yeah, I would say definitely Belichick, Brady at the top because of winning the 6 championships together. Then I put Walsh and Montana second. I think Walsh was so creative, and he found the perfect guy in Joe Montana to run that offense that I'm not sure that Joe would have been as successful anywhere else, and I don't think that Walsh would have won all those Super Bowls with anybody else. That was just a perfect combination. And then, you can look at, Noel and Bradshaw. They did not have a good relationship.
No, they didn't. I agree with you, but a lot of hardware.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, to win 4, be the first team to win 4 is pretty impressive. And somebody that you might not have thought of, and I looked at it more of combinations that have won multiple championships, which to me eliminates Don Shula and Dan Marino, because not only didn't they ever win a Super Bowl together, but they only got to 1. They got blown out by the Niners, and that was in Marino's 2nd season, and they never even got back. So the other guys I would want you to consider here, besides Lombardi and Bart Starr, because they won the first 2 and they won other championships together. But how about Jimmy Johnson and Troy Aikman?
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's pretty good of this era.
I think so. 3 Super Bowls, you can't argue that.
And then for an 8-game stretch, 4 playoff games in 2 different seasons, Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning were magic together.
Yeah.
Not during the rest of the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they never won a playoff game in any other season other than when they won the Super Bowl. But, Pat, those 2 runs of 4 games, winning 4 playoff games each time, especially in 2007 when they won on the road in Tampa, Dallas, and Green Bay. Green Bay in overtime and minus 400-degree temperature.
I know.
And then beating the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl. That was an impressive Super Bowl run as any in the 55, 56-year history of the Super Bowl. I mean, that was just great. But, the whole body of work, you wouldn't put them there. But for those 2 runs, they were as good as anybody.
All right. I would still take issue, though. I think Marino gets a raw deal, Gary. I really do. I mean, he never won a Super Bowl, but sometimes that's such a harsh judgment. 90% of the NFL doesn't win a Super Bowl. He was an outstanding, one of the top 6 quarterbacks of all time, in my opinion. Just a rocket arm and a tremendous talent who, in some ways, revolutionized the game. And I think you got to give Don Shula credit for seeing that. Just prior to Marino's arrival, they were a 3 running back plotting team that he maximized and won Super Bowls with. And when he saw what he had in Marino, he turned that around on a dime.
Yeah, I mean, he got to a Super Bowl with David Woodley as his quarterback. But,
but
Pat, I would still say to you, if you take Don Shula, who's the winningest coach in NFL history, and you have Dan Marino in your top 6, and I would not disagree with that. And then I tell you they only got to 1 Super Bowl together and didn't win it. Could you really put him at the top of this list?
As a combination, you mean? Yeah, I understand your point. I do. There's merit to your argument. I just tend to look. You're looking at the end result of postseason. I'm still looking at it saying 14-game or 16-game season, game after game after game. There was a reason why Miami was on national TV 10 times a year.
Sure,
and it was because of Don Shula, Dan Marino.
And I think that Shula let Marino down by never having, an elite defense and never having an elite running game to go with him. So it was basically Marino dropping back and throwing to Duper and Clayton and that more. And he was amazing.
All right.
But
I agree.
I guess I'm old-fashioned or old school. I still judge it on championships for quarterbacks and coaches.
Right.
Same thing like with Sean Payton and Drew Brees. For as great as they were for over a decade together, they got to 1 Super Bowl. They won it, but I think they underachieved together.
We're talking with Gary Myers, a Hall of Fame elector, the author of numerous books, including one coming out in September of 23 called Once a Giant, a chronicle of the Giants. It was the 86 team. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's about their life after football. Yeah.
So looking very much forward to that. Gary, I'm going to hold off for a week on looking at players or NFL greats that we lost in 2022. And just ask you this in the couple minutes we got left here. And I apologize to Sean Green. I know, Sean, I'm holding you up. But Gary, I had Sal Pao on just a few minutes ago, and we were looking at Super Bowl contenders and the like. And Sal, he's bullish on the Green Bay Packers. Do you see any what I call dark horses or long shots who could elbow their way into the Super Bowl conversation at Week 17?
Sal is bullish on Green Bay. What? Making the playoffs? I wouldn't disagree with that.
And possibly making a run if they make the playoffs. His point is nobody wants to see number 12 come into their building.
I don't agree with that because I don't look at him the same way as I did when he had Devontae Adams and had a real go-to receiver. Aaron Rodgers is just, to me, it looked like his skills have diminished this year. I know he's probably capable in one game or for a quarter or so of, turning back the clock, but I don't see that at all. I would disagree with Sal. I would almost tell you now. I don't think Tampa is going to get on a run because if you watch them all season, it's hard to imagine that. But Pat, I would not be surprised. I'll probably be wrong about this, but I would not be surprised if they beat Dallas in the wild card round in Tampa.
Yeah.
There's something about this Cowboys team I don't trust.
Yeah.
And this could be Brady's last hurrah. We don't know what the future holds for him.
Right.
As far as another wild card type team, all season I've loved the Chargers.
Yeah.
I think that Justin Herbert is a more athletic Dan Marino. He reminds me so much of Marino.
Yeah.
With the arm and the quick release, and he had a throw down the sidelines against Tennessee a couple weeks ago.
Right.
It was just amazing. So if you're going to say, okay, of the 14 teams that are making the playoffs, give me one that's kind of
an
not
outlier.
The mainstream. I'll say the Chargers.
All right, very good. I appreciate that choice. And as I was pointing out earlier, Gary, I think it's important that I think if the Chargers can win out and Baltimore stumbles, the Chargers move into that 5 seed, and that's where you want to be. You don't want to be playing one of those power 3 teams in the first round. If they could get a 5 seed, they're going to play the winner of the AFC South, and I think that's a very winnable game. All right, Gary, I ran out of time. I apologize for
no, it's my fault. I couldn't get connected to you.
I appreciate you working hard and diligently to get onto the show. It's always great. And I'll give you an expanded cut next week because there's a few things I want to talk to you about, including a number of guys, and get your take, your opinion, a brief comment on a number of guys that we lost. I know like guys like Don Maynard, guys I think you probably knew or were familiar with, on whose shoulders a lot of NFL guys today stand. But I hope you have a good New Year, Gary, and we'll talk to you next week. All right.
Okay, Pat. Happy New Year to you too.
All right. Thanks. Great, Gary Myers. I apologize, Sean Green. Thank you for hanging on with me. And we're going to be right back with Sean Green in just a minute. And after that, we'll wrap it up here on This Week in Pro Football.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
UGI.
First Bank is a true community bank with offices located throughout eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Being a First Bank customer comes with access to personal bankers, ones who know you and your business almost as well as you do. Joe Calabro is a regional president of First Bank and has been a leader and a lender in the southeastern Pennsylvania market for over 30 years. Call their Westchester office, 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC.
UGI Energy Services knows how dedicated you are to your teams, and that's how they feel about their customers. UGI Energy Services, a natural gas and electric provider servicing Philadelphia and the surrounding areas for decades. They're your local partner for energy planning and budgeting with sound purchasing advice and direct pricing. UGI Energy Services values customers and believes in building honest relationships. Let them help you save money on your energy bill and make enjoying the game that much sweeter. Get started with a free quote today at ugies.com. Where do you tailgate when your team's away? Join Judd's and Jackson's at Spring Mill for their first ever Birds Tailgate Party on Sunday, September 25th, starting at noon under the tent. Enjoy a full tailgate buffet from only $26.95 per person, along with specials at the bar. Celebrate with friends cheering on our hometown team. Judd's and Jackson's at Spring Mill Athletic Club. Visit juddsdining.com for more details.
Evolution Energy Partners has helped hundreds of businesses save millions of dollars on their energy spent. They offer electricity and gas procurement strategies, efficiency audits and engineering and financing solutions, as well as online utility bill management. To learn how your business can save, visit www.evolutionep.com or contact Chuck Herschella at 610-329-8288. Evolution Energy Partners, energy solutions to improve your bottom line.
I want to be a game changer in construction. I want to be able to provide diversity in the workforce, and it starts at the top. I started Rodriguez Construction Group in 2013 with 2 employees, and we're 85 strong today. M&T has been a great partner since day one, providing us the access, the opportunity, the funding to be able to continue our growth. We can change the community in a positive way, one person at a time, one job at a time, and one family at a time. I think M&T Bank is very committed to the community, just like us.
Welcome back This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan joining you here. Week 17, the National Football League. Give me a follow at TWIPF Pat and the network at JAKIB Sports. And how about this guy at Sean Green? Sean Green, the host of the Sports Gambling Podcast and Bet SGPN. Sean, I owe you an apology. Thank you for hanging out with me. Great to see you.
Hey, no worries. Always down to check out the show and hear you guys talk shop. Maybe one day we'll be talking about Hurts and Sirianni in those legendary coach QB duos.
Could be. That's right. Hurts Sirianni. You know, it doesn't take long to become legendary anymore, I guess, in this league, Sean. But give me just a quick recap of what you saw happen last week in Dallas. And Sal saw some warning signs, some things defensively. He thinks the Eagles are still very strong, though. Overall, they're going to be the 1 seed. But did you see anything that gave you a little pause last week?
Yeah, I mean, I think not having Avonte Maddox out there was pretty big for the Eagles. Again, like situationally, it was a tough spot. Not to make a ton of excuses. I mean, you turn the ball over 4 times on the road, you're not going to win many games. So in some ways, it was impressive that they were able to have a chance to win that game on that last drive, considering they turned it over 4 times. I mean, the fumbles, from Sanders and Boston Scott there. Those were huge.
Right.
So I think if they clean those up again, it was the third road game, 3 road games in a row.
Exactly right.
It's a 17-game NFL season.
Yeah,
I'm not shocked. They had a down week against a division rival.
And still with a backup quarterback, and still almost came within 20 yards of winning the game.
Yeah.
So that leads me though to this next one, Sean. I was talking with Sal Pao about this. That it's funny how a lot of the national media now turning on Philadelphia. You hear a lot of this one and done talk now amongst the Eagles. 13-2 team that almost won in Dallas with their backup quarterback. Do you think there's a little bit of an overreaction going on here?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, something that I think you should be legitimately concerned about is the health of Lane Johnson. Yeah. He's huge to that offensive line. So now he decided to put off surgery. He's going to be back for the postseason, he says. But will he be 100%? And what will the offensive line look like?
Right.
That is definitely worrisome. But they're still able to move the ball. The pass rush, they got the Cowboys the 3rd and 30 because they sacked Dak twice. Now,
I know.
Josiah Scott, it seems like he's the guy to blame for T.Y. Hilton getting past him. But, that pass rush is still legit, still a very good team at home. And all they got to do, win one of these next 2 or have the Cowboys lose. And, the Super Bowl goes through Philly. So I still like their chances.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's a complete overreaction. I've heard more than one prognosticator or social media football host talk about how the Eagles.
Well, and they know the Eagles fans are psychos, and if you call the Eagles fans out, you're going to get everyone sharing the clip.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Getting fired up.
We don't do those kind of pyrotechnics here on this high quality program, Sean. Okay, so all right, let's turn our attention to this week. I wanted to ask you just a couple of things about the one prop is that talking about the Eagles. Their Super Bowl prop. What is their number now? And how far and down in the pecking order are they in terms of odds?
Yeah, right now you got the Bills at plus 340. You have the Chiefs at plus 500. And then the Eagles also right there at 5-1, tied for the Chiefs right now. Which, I think in some ways you almost should make the Bills and Chiefs higher odds because inevitably they probably have to play each other. Right. 49ers are right behind the Eagles at 6-1, and then Dallas and Vikings are right there as well. I still think in the AFC the Bengals are an interesting team there, but Eagles sitting there right at 5-1. Nothing, no major changes after that Cowboys loss.
Interesting, Sean. The 49ers at 6-1. Just what is that? I don't know, 15-16% higher than the Eagles with a guy who was literally the last pick in the draft as their starting.
That's irrelevant. Yeah, I mean the 49ers have a good defense.
They do. They have a good team. They do. But let's calm down a little bit about them winning the Super Bowl because I can't stand them. I can't stand the Niners as a longtime Ram fan, but I think everybody's got to calm down a little bit about this 49ers team. But
I mean, Brock Purdy on the road in the playoffs is as much as you can make fun of Jimmy G, and it's fun to. Right. The guy won a lot of playoff games and won tough games on the road. For Brock Purdy to be those low odds, all things considered, I don't know. I think playoff football could be a wake-up call for Brock Purdy.
I think so too. We were talking about the same thing with Sal. Him coming to Philadelphia and playing in that Thunderdome. With 65,000 people on a cold January afternoon or evening. I don't know. I'll believe that when I see it. But 49ers are going to be a tough out, I'd say. But so let's get to the week's games here, Sean. And I'll start with the Eagles game. I'm looking at this excellent website here, the Sports Gambling Podcast and the odds. And, of course, I go right to the Sean Green column because where else would you go? Minus 5.5. I'm shocked. Isn't that a low number for a 13-2 team playing a home game against a team that's basically out of the playoffs?
Yeah, so New Orleans needs a win out, and they need a bunch of help to get.
Oh, they need tremendous help.
Yeah. And this is a back-to-back road spot for New Orleans, a dome team. And the Eagles. Here's 2 big items that really makes me like the Eagles. The line when we picked it on our show was 5.5. Hurts got in a full practice today, or at least limited. Looked pretty good, and they moved it to 6.5. I think based off that news. An injury no one's talking about was Jordan Davis got knocked out of the Cowboys game or was dealing with a concussion. He cleared the concussion protocol. So for a team like the Saints that
Right.
rely on their running game, having Jordan Davis back, I think will be huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to be shocked if Jalen Hurts plays. The one issue is if, you know, I guess there is a couple things. Obviously, if Dallas loses against the Titans, that would make the game against the Eagles. They could just rest everyone, but it does.
They're not going to lose to the Titans. If they lose to the Titans, Sean, then that would just be one of the all-time choke jobs ever.
That would be
the Titans starting a guy who was on the Detroit Lions practice squad 10 days ago. That's really speaks volumes about how thrilled they are with Malik Willis. I'm looking at the Sean Green column here on your website, and it's backup quarterback week here.
Oh, man, yeah.
Isn't it amazing, Sean? But I see you got the Vegas Raiders +10 talking about those 49ers. You a big Jared Stidham fan, are you?
You know, this game was really tough. I just said, you know, the 49ers as non-conference road favorites. Again, non-conference road favorites are the toughest spots to cover as a team gambling wise. It's tough to get up for the game. You don't have a lot going on for it. And I just decided that, you know, I'm going to take the Raiders there as the home dog, getting double digits. Maybe they rally around Stidham. I do think the Carr lost the locker room to some degree. I know Devontae Adams is his boy, but they needed some sort of spark here. Maybe it's Stidham, probably not, but 10 points on the road against a non-conference opponent is a lot.
I agree. Maybe the Raiders do rally. I don't know. I guess it'll be readily apparent that when that game unfolds. But what a terrible season in Las Vegas for the Raiders, a team that had some promise and really should have competed for that AFC West title, really fell on their face. The other game, Sean, I wanted to get your take on that I think has upset potential in it is Carolina going to Tampa Bay. Now, Tampa Bay won earlier in Carolina 21-3. And I think both teams, though, have gone opposite ways since. After so many weeks, the Tampa Bay Bucks are what we thought they were. I mean, to quote Denny Green, right?
We let them off the hook.
They don't score a lot of points. They are winning games at the very last minute, some of them in miraculous fashion, like when they beat the Rams. So I'm not at all impressed with the Buccaneers. Carolina is a formidable running team. Do they have a good puncher's chance here Sunday?
Yeah, 100%. To your point, you used to be able to rely on that Bucs team. Why? Because they had a really good run defense, and they just don't have that anymore. So Carolina is a good team to bet on with Steve Wilkes here if they can run the ball. You saw that in Seattle. You saw that against the Lions. If they play a tough rushing defense, everything unravels and Sam Darnold's forced to win the game. That's not a position you want to be in. But I think they're going to be able to run the ball against this Bucs team, keep it a close game. And the Panthers are playing for their head coach right now. And I don't think you can necessarily say the same thing for this Bucs team who struggled to put away McSorley, who looked really pretty rough. But again, James Conner had a big game, kept them around, and I expect a similar thing here.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. I just don't think Tampa's that impressive, and their record is exactly that, 7-8. What a division that is! The two southern divisions really are just terrible this year in the National Football League, and I think Carolina's got a good chance to win that game.
Bucks they're the only team in the NFL that hasn't covered a game at home so far this season. So to your point, they've not been meeting expectations.
All right. Well, Sean Green, you meet expectations every time. Where's everybody going to find you this weekend? I guess obviously the Sports Gambling Podcast. What else is going on?
Yes,
in the ever-expanding empire of Sean Green.
SportsGamblingPodcast.com. Wherever you get podcasts, just type in Sports Gambling Podcast.
Right.
Running some free contests on the SGPN app. Just type in SGPN in the App Store.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, I appreciate you sticking with me all season. We got a few weeks to go, pal. So hang out. I'll better watch with me next week. I'm going to throttle Gary for being so late. Tell him, who do you think you're dealing with here? It's a Sean Green we're talking about, for God's sake. But I appreciate you hanging out. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take it easy, Pat.
All right. Sean Green joining me from the Bet SGPN and the Sports Gambling Podcast. Xander, why don't we do this? We can wrap up here the next couple of minutes. If you bring up that Week 17 schedule here, we could just head up with that. Dallas and Tennessee in the Thursday night game. I think Dallas can name the number here. I'd be very surprised they don't win this game going away against the team, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, is basically off this week. Everything matters next week when they play at Jacksonville. But there's a number of big games this week. The Giants can clinch a playoff berth if they defeat the Colts on Sunday. I certainly expect them to do that. We talked enough about the Niners and the Raiders. Certainly Green Bay hosting the Vikings. They host Detroit thereafter. Green Bay has to win out, and they need some help. And things have to fall their way. The Commanders play the Browns this week. That's certainly a winnable game for Washington. And then Washington hosts Dallas. And it'll be interesting to see what happens here. If the Cowboys have no reason to play, Washington might go ahead and win that game. That knocks Green Bay out. But if Washington stumbles and Green Bay wins out, Packers could grab that 7 seed. And as Sal pointed out, don't really want to see them coming. The Monday night game, a big, big game for AFC bragging rights there as to that 2-3 seed. These are two teams that very well could be meeting each other again. If Buffalo wins, they're going to lock up that 1 seed. If the Bengals can win, though, now you have a real jumble going into that final week 18 as to who's going to grab that number 1 seed. It'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. Could end up being Kansas City, and then Cincinnati would grab the 2 seed and be able to host Buffalo again in the playoffs. All right, that'll do it for this week's This Week in Pro Football. A lot of football to talk about this week. Philadelphia hosting the Saints, and hopefully Philadelphia locks up that 1 seed, and the Eagles can rest a bunch of people next week as they get ready to hopefully go deep into the playoffs. We'll see how that plays out, and we'll see how the rest of the positions shake out when I see you again next week. Thanks a lot for joining me. Thanks a lot to Sal Pal and to Gary Myers and to Sean Green. And we look forward certainly to talking to you next week on This Week in Pro Football.